Happy Monday, everybody. Still miss being in the classroom with you. We're going to try something different this week, make the videos a little shorter, and then there's a flip grid that has lots of examples done out. You can click on as many examples as you need to, 30 seconds each about, so that you can get good at what we're asking you to learn. And today we're asking you to learn how to estimate a square root to a mixed number and a decimal. So you'll need to get good at this, so you'll practice as much as you need to, whether you need to watch 2 or 3 or 7, depends on you. Hope you had a chance to print out the note sheet so you can follow along with our smart board for the house that we got at Staples this weekend. Alright, so when we're estimating a square root, the most important thing is that you know the perfect squares. So memorizing this chart, some of you already have it memorized, we know that. You want to definitely memorize this. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. 9 is 3. 16 is 4. 25 is 5. 36 is 6. 49 is 7, 64 is 8, 81 is 9, 100 is 10, 121 is 11, and 144 is 12. Notice that we're only talking about the positive ones. That's what we're going to focus on, is the positives. So if you were asked to estimate the square root of 8, you should first in your head think about what whole number square root of 8 is closest to. And if you look at this row, square root of 8 would be in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. And you can picture these roots like a number line. Square root 4, then it would be square root 5 would come next. Square root 6, square root 7, square root 8, and square root 9. Square root of 8 is very close to being square root of 9. So if I had to estimate it to a whole number, I would say it's pretty close to being 3. But now looking at my chart, I know that it's actually in between root 4, which is 2, and root 9, which is 3. So that means if I was to write it as a mixed number or a decimal, it would be 2 and some fraction. Now to get my fraction, I'm going to figure out how far the total distance is between 4 and 9. So to get from 4 to 9, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. 9 minus 4 is 5. That's my denominator. To get my numerator for my mixed number, I want to know where 8 falls in that list. So to get from 4 to 8, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. 8 minus 4 is 4. So my mixed number estimate for the square root of 8 would be 2 4/5. Now to make that into a decimal, the top number goes in the box. So I'm doing 4 divided by 5. I'm putting my decimal. 5 goes into 48 times. So my decimal would be 2.8. So now let's try root 13. Root 13, if you look at the list above, root 13 would be in between root 9 and root 16. I can write out all the numbers in between, but I don't really need to do that to figure it out. I know that root 13 is somewhere in between there. It is closer to being root 16, so it's closer to being 4 than it is to being 3. But I know that root 13 is between 3 and 4. Now I'm going to write a mixed number. So I know it's going to be 3 and some fraction. To get all the way between 9 and 16, I would have to go 7 spaces. 16 minus 9 is 7. But I only want to go to 13, so my numerator is 13 minus 9, or 4. So my mixed number is 3 4/7. I also need to be able to write that as a decimal, rounded to the nearest tenth. And then the easiest, quickest way to do that, if you don't know your sevens, is to divide. The top number always goes in the box. 7 goes into 40 5 times, which is 35. And now I'm going to stop here, because we're going to round this to the nearest tenth anyway. So if what I have left over is more than half of this number, I'm going to round my decimal up. 5 is more than half of 7, so I'm going to make this 0.6. So I'm going to estimate this to be 3.6 as a decimal number. Now my next example, root 20. Root 20 is somewhere in between root 16 and root 25. Root 20 is closer to being root 16 because it's only 4 away. So I would say estimate it as a whole number to be about 4. I know it's going to be in between 4 and 5. So my mixed number is going to be 4 and some fraction. To figure out my denominator, I want to know the total distance between these perfect squares. 25 minus 16 is 9. To get my numerator, I'm going to figure out the distance between 16 and 20, which I'm trying to figure out. 20 minus 16 is 4. So my mixed number would be 4 and 4/9. And then if I was going to write it as a decimal, my 4 goes in the box, 9 goes into 40 4 times, which is 36. I subtract and I get 4. 4 is not more than half of 9, so it's going to stay a 4. So I'm going to estimate it to be 4.4.